Welcome to Washington Today on C-SPAN Radio for Monday, August 18, 2025. President Donald Trump holds high-level meetings with the president of Ukraine and the leaders of major European nations, plus the NATO Secretary General, on how to end the war in Ukraine. It was at the White House. President Trump not ruling out sending U.S. troops as part of security guarantees to Ukraine, and the president sounding hopeful that a trilateral meeting with himself, Russian President Vladimir Putin, and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky could be set up soon. Some of the European leaders express a preference for a ceasefire in Ukraine before a peace agreement with Russia. It's something that President Trump says is not absolutely necessary. Texas House Democrats end their protest blocking congressional redistricting written by Republicans, returning to Texas and allowing the House to establish a quorum. This after California's Democratic governor leads an effort to redistrict in his state in an effort to neutralize any Republican gains in Texas. Former U.S. Senator Sherrod, Democrat from Ohio, who lost re-election, announces he is running for Senate again against Republican John Husted, who was appointed after former Senator J.D. Vance resigned to be vice president. Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser responds to news over the weekend that several Republican governors authorizing sending National Guard troops to Washington, D.C. to join the D.C. Guard that was called up by President Trump. Former Attorney General Bill Barr gives the first deposition in the House Oversight Committee's investigation into the case of the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, and Canada's Industrial Relations Board declares a strike by 10,000 Air Canada flight attendants illegal, but union leaders say they will not return to work without a new contract. New York Times writes that President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine met with President Trump and an extraordinary delegation of European leaders at the White House on Monday, seeking to defend his nation's interests as Mr. Trump presses for a quick peace agreement with Russia that would require Ukraine to make sweeping concessions. Wearing a black suit instead of his usual military clothing, and backed by European presidents and prime ministers who had rushed to Washington to support him, Mr. Zelensky was greeted warmly by Mr. Trump. Inside the Oval Office, the two presidents showed few signs of their once frayed relationship, talked positively about the United States playing a role in security guarantees for Europe, and expressed their eagerness to arrange a trilateral meeting with Russia's President Vladimir V. Putin. That was from the New York Times. Here is some of what happened in the Oval Office with that one-on-one meeting. Fox News White House correspondent Peter Doocy asking the first questions.
President Zelensky, you say in a post on X today, Russia must end this war, which it itself started. President Trump, you say President Zelensky of Ukraine can end the war with Russia almost immediately if he wants to. Which is it?
No, I think that's true. I think we're going to have a meeting. I think if everything works out well today, we'll have a trilat. And I think there will be a reasonable chance of ending the war when we do that.
And, is this the end of the road for American support for Ukraine? Is today's meeting deal or no deal?
I can never say that. It's never the end of the road. People are being killed, and we want to stop that. So I would not say it's the end of the road. No, I think we have a good chance of doing it. It's been almost 4 years now that a lot of people were killed last week. A lot of people last week. I mean, millions of people killed, but a lot of people last week for whatever reason. A big number, a lot of soldiers, on both sides. And I know the president, I know myself, and I believe Vladimir Putin wants to see it ended.
And as you met with Putin on Friday, today you've got President Zelensky here. As you listen to Russia and Ukraine, which side has the better cards right now?
I don't want to say that. I'm just here to be. Look, this isn't my war. This is Joe Biden's war. He's the one that had a lot to do with this happening, and we want to get it ended. And we want it to end good for everybody. We want it to end good. The people of Ukraine have suffered incredibly.
And to that point, President Zelensky, are you prepared to keep sending Ukrainian troops to their deaths for another couple years, or are you going to agree to redraw the maps?
Thank you for your question. So, first of all, we live under each day attacks. That today have been a lot of attacks and a lot of wounded people, and the child was dead, small one year and a half. So we need to stop this war, to stop Russia, and we need support American and European partners, and we will do our best for this. So, and I think we show that we are strong people, and we supported the idea of the United States, of personally of President Trump, to stop this war, to make a diplomatic way of finishing this war, and we are ready for trilateral, as President said. This is a good signal about trilateral. I think this is very good. Thank you.
Mr. President,
yes. If the peace deal will be achieved, are you going to be willing to send American peacekeepers to Ukraine?
Well, we're going to work with Ukraine. We're going to work with everybody, and we're going to make sure that if there's peace, the peace is going to stay long term. This is very long term. We're not talking about a 2-year peace and then we end up in this mess again. We're going to make sure that everything's good. We'll work with Russia. We're going to work with Ukraine, and we're going to make sure it works. And I think if we can get to peace, it's going to work. I have no doubt about it.
President Zelensky,
go ahead.
Your team has talked about security guarantees. Could that involve U.S. troops? Would you roll that out in the future?
We'll let you know that maybe later today. We're meeting with 7 great leaders of great countries also, and we'll be talking about that. They'll all be involved, but there'll be a lot of help when it comes to security. There's going to be a lot of help. It's going to be good. They are first line of defense because they're there. They're Europe, but we're going to help them out also. We'll be involved.
President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in the White House Oval Office. More from the New York Times article on this meeting with the European leaders already in the White House. Details on any progress toward peace were scarce, and Mr. Zelensky, now 3.5 years into a war instigated by Russia, is expected to soon confront a difficult choice: surrender territory in exchange for vague promises of Ukraine's future security, or hold his ground and risk reigniting Mr. Trump's anger. And hours before the meetings in Washington, Russian attacks in the Ukraine cities of Kharkiv and Zaporizhia killed at least 10 people, including a child, and injured dozens of others, the Ukrainian authorities said. Mr. Zelensky condemned the strikes as a deliberate attempt to put pressure on Ukraine amid the talks. That was from the New York Times. After the Oval Office meeting, Presidents Trump and Zelensky then met with the European leaders in the White House East Room. President Trump welcomed them and spoke about what they would be talking about.
The Alaska summit reinforced my belief that while difficult, peace is within reach, and I believe that in a very significant step, President Putin agreed that Russia would accept security guarantees for Ukraine, and this is one of the key points that we need to consider, and we're going to be considering that at the table also, like who will do what, essentially. I'm optimistic that collectively we can reach an agreement that would deter any future aggression against Ukraine, and I actually think there won't be. I think that's even overrated, largely overrated, but we're going to find out. And I think that the European nations are going to take a lot of the burden. We're going to help them, and we're going to make it very secure. We also need to discuss the possible exchanges of territory, taking into consideration the current line of contact. That means the war zone, the war lines that are pretty obvious, very sad actually to look at them, and negotiating positions. President Putin, also you have President of Ukraine, who is you just met a little while ago, and we're going to try and get a 3-party meeting maybe as soon as we can, and I have a feeling you and President Putin are going to work something out. Ultimately, this is a decision that can only be made by President Zelensky and by the people of Ukraine working also together in agreement with President Putin. And I just think that's very good things are going to come of it. So I hope we have a good meeting. And if we can have a good meeting, I'll set up a meeting with President Putin. And if you'd like, I'll go to that meeting. And not that I want to do that, but I will do that because we want to save a lot of people from dying. A lot of people are dying, and we got to save them. Got to save it. 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 people sometimes a week. All of us would obviously prefer an immediate ceasefire while we work on a lasting peace, and maybe something like that could happen. As of this moment, it's not happening, but President Zelensky and President Putin can talk a little bit more about that. You know, in the 6 or so wars that we stopped, we haven't had a ceasefire. And so I don't know that it's necessary. You can do it through the war, but it would be, I like the ceasefire from another standpoint. You immediately stop the killing. But I believe a peace agreement at the end of all of this is something that's very attainable, and it can be done in the near future. With all of the wars that I got involved in, we only have this one left.
President Trump in the White House East Room, sitting at a table with the European leaders and Ukrainian President Zelensky. Zelensky again spoke about the importance of security guarantees and said that he does want President Trump at any trilateral meeting with the Russian President Vladimir Putin that President Trump said he's trying to arrange.
Thank you so much. I think that we had very good conversation with President Trump.
Very good.
And it really was the best one. Maybe the best one will be in the future. But it was really good. And we spoke about very sensitive points. The first one is security guarantees. And we are very happy with President that all the leaders are here, and the security in Ukraine depends on the United States and on you and on those leaders who are with us in our hearts. They have been online before yesterday, and etc. So a lot of countries on the side of Ukraine, our people, and all of us want to finish this war, stop Russia and stop this war. We spoke about it, and we will speak more about security guarantees. This is very important that the United States gives such strong signal and is ready for security guarantees. The second point, or maybe the first, humanitarian direction, very important to exchange all the prisoners, and I think that President will help. And I was very thankful to your wife again, Mr. President, for the letter about our abducted children, and I hope that really it can be a historic role for the people to bring kids back to the families and be happy at
Get
the
people
families.
back, yeah.
Yes, this is so important, and I'm happy that we discussed it, this track with the President Trump, and I hope that we will find decisions. And then what is very important, that all the sensitive things, territorial, etc., we will discuss on the level of leaders during trilateral meeting, and President Trump will try to organize such meeting, and he said that he will come or not come. Ukraine will be happy if you will
both want me there, I will be there. Yeah,
yeah,
you know that.
Thank you. And I think this is very important. Yes, so security guarantees, bringing kids back, and all our people, not only warriors, first of all warriors, and all the civilians, journalists, a lot of people in prison. So we need them back. And guarantees which will work for the years. We spoke about it, and I showed the President a lot of details on the battlefield, on the map. Thank you so much. Thank you for the map, by the way.
Good map.
It was great. Yeah. I'm thinking how to take it back.
We'll get you.
No. I think that we had constructive, specific meeting, and I'm very thankful to all the leaders who are here, and you help a lot, and so we are happy that we have such big unity today. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in the White House East Room at today's meeting, hosted by President Donald Trump, and also with the leaders of France, Great Britain, Italy, Germany, Finland, NATO, and the European Commission. President Trump asked each of them to say a few words. Here are German Chancellor Friedrich Merz talking about a ceasefire, and Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni about security guarantees.
Mr. President, dear Donald, many thanks for having us today. I think this is extremely helpful that we are meeting and hearing that the two of you are having such a good meeting today here in Washington. The next steps ahead are the more complicated ones now. The path is open. You opened it last Friday. But now the way is open for complicated negotiations. And to be honest, we all would like to see a ceasefire, the latest from the next meeting on. I can't imagine that the next meeting would take place without a ceasefire. So let's work on that, and let's try to put pressure on Russia, because the credibility of these efforts we are undertaking today are depending on at least a ceasefire from the beginning of the serious negotiations from next step on. So I would like to emphasize this aspect and would like to see a ceasefire from the next meeting, which should be a trilateral meeting wherever it takes place.
Well, we're going to let the president go over and talk to the president, and we'll see how that works out, and if we can do that. I will say, and again I say it, in the 6 wars that I've settled, I haven't had a ceasefire. We just got into negotiations, and one of the wars was, as you know, in the Congo was 31 years long. Another one that we settled last week with 2 great countries was 35 years going on, and we had no ceasefire. So if we can do the ceasefire, great. And if we don't do a ceasefire, because many other points were given to us, many points were given to us, great points. Please, Georgia, go ahead.
Well, thank you very much, Donald, Mr. President, for hosting us today in this important meeting. And I think it is an important day, a new phase, after 3 years and a half that we didn't see any kind of sign from the Russian side that there was a willing for dialogue. So something is changing, something has changed, thanks to you. Thanks also to the stalling in the battlefield, which was achieved with the bravery of Ukrainians and with the unity that we all provided to Ukraine. And the reason why I mention it is that we also have to remind that if we want to reach peace and if we want to guarantee justice, we have to do it united. So that's why it's a very good day, the one we are in. You can obviously count on Italy as it was from the beginning. We are on the side of Ukraine, and we do absolutely support your efforts towards peace. We will talk about many important topics. The first one is security guarantees, how to be sure that it won't happen again, which is the precondition of every kind of peace. I'm happy that we will discuss about that. I'm happy that we will begin from a proposal, which is the, let's say, Article 5 model, which was Italian at the beginning. So we are always ready to bring our proposals for peace, for dialogue. It's something we have to build together to guarantee peace and to defend the security of our nation. So thank you, Mr. President, for hosting us.
Thank you very much.
The Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, and before that the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz at today's White House meeting with President Trump, President Zelensky, and other European leaders. RT, the Russian government-funded news site, reporting on what you just heard. U.S. President Donald Trump has shrugged off demands from his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz that a ceasefire be put in place as a first stage of any lasting resolution to the Ukraine conflict. Also, Associated Press reporting on something that happened at the end of the meeting at the White House. They write, it came as he closed the open session with European leaders about pursuing an end to Russia's war in Ukraine, known for blasting the news media and punishing outlets he doesn't agree with. President Trump on Monday said the media has been actually very fair, generally speaking, very fair. I think it's very important that they're fair because this is a very important subject to get it ended. So that's all we ever ask for is fairness, reporting from AP. And the Senate Majority Leader John Thune, Republican from South Dakota, writing today on X, President Trump should be commended for his dogged determination to bring peace to Ukraine and for his courage to engage with all parties in a way his predecessor refused to do. As peace talks continue today in Washington, the U.S. Senate stands ready to provide President Trump any economic leverage needed to keep Russia at the table to negotiate a just and lasting peace in Ukraine. That post from Senate Majority Leader John Thune. And this is Washington Today. Texas Democrats, begins an AP story, say they are ending a 2-week walkout that stalled Republican efforts to redraw congressional districts to satisfy President Donald Trump's demands for a greater GOP advantage. Democratic leaders say they will return for a second special legislative session after seeing California Democratic leaders proceed with plans to redraw their own U.S. House maps to neutralize Republican gains in Texas. The nation's 2 most populous states have been at the forefront of a national fight to reshape the congressional landscape skip ahead of the 2026 midterm elections. President Trump has sought to shore up Republicans' narrow House majority and avoid a repeat of the 2018 midterms during his first presidency, when Democrats regained House control and used the majority to stymie his agenda and twice impeach him. That was from the AP article. The Texas House Speaker, Dustin Burrows, a Republican, held the gavel during today's House session in Austin, Texas, achieving a quorum for the first time in a couple of weeks.
A quorum is present, and it's time to resume the work of the people of Texas sent us here to do. Restoring a quorum was my first responsibility as Speaker, and it has been accomplished. My responsibility now is to keep this quorum intact and to maintain an atmosphere of order and respect until the job is finished. No one here needs a reminder that the last few weeks have been contentious. But from this point forward, the rules of engagement are clear. Debate is welcome, but personal attacks and name-calling will not be tolerated. The Speaker shall see that the members of the House conduct themselves in a civil manner, and guests in the gallery are also reminded of the importance of decorum. Any disturbances of disorderly conduct will result in removal. Members, the House has been through a tumultuous 2 weeks, but this institution long predates us and will long outlast each of us. Representatives come and go, issues rise and fall, but this body has endured wars, economic depressions, and quorum breaks dating back to the very first session. It will withstand this too, and what will remain is a chamber where the majority has the right to prevail and the minority has the right to be heard. That has always been the mark of a functioning Texas House. Let me also be clear about where we go from here. We are done waiting. We have a quorum. Now is the time for action. We will move quickly, and the schedule will be demanding until our work is complete. To that end, members who have been present before today, for whom arrest warrants were not issued, will receive written permission to return Wednesday at 10 a.m. Members who have not been present until today, for whom arrest warrants were issued, will be granted written permission to leave only after agreeing to be released into the custody of a designated DPS officer appointment under the rules of the House, or who will ensure your return Wednesday at 10 a.m. For those still absent, civil arrest warrants remain in force. We have a few items of business to complete today, after which the House will adjourn until Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. The call will remain in place. Members, it is time for us to get to work.
Speaker of the Texas House of Representatives, Dustin Burrows, a Republican, presiding over today's session. The Texas House Minority Leader, Democrat Jean Wu, putting out a statement: "We killed the corrupt special session, withstood unprecedented surveillance and intimidation, and rallied Democrats nationwide to join this existential fight for fair representation, reshaping the entire 2026 landscape. We're returning to Texas more dangerous to Republicans' plans than when we left. Our return allows us to build the legal record necessary to defeat this racist map in court, take our message to communities across the state and country, and inspire legislators across the country how to fight these undemocratic redistricting schemes in their own state houses." That statement from the Texas House Minority Leader, Democrat Jean Wu. Democratic National Committee Chair Ken Martin posted a video.
I want to take a moment to thank the Texas Democrats who broke quorum and stood on the front lines of an all-out assault on democracy by Trump and the complicit Republicans. It wasn't easy for them to leave home and endure attacks from the GOP, but I'm so grateful to every Texas Democrat who stepped up to protect not only their constituents, but democracy as we know it. Republicans know they can't win elections on their failing policies or their billionaire-first agenda. So what's their solution? It's to cheat voters and to steal seats in Congress. Texas Democrats started this fight to protect democracy and fair elections. They have given us the spark that is igniting this fight across the country. And it's time for Democrats everywhere to pick up the baton from our friends in Texas and to carry on this fight. Thank you, Texas Democrats.
DNC Chair Ken Martin in a video. LA Times writes that President Trump said Monday he would renew his assault on mail-in voting after Russia's autocratic leader, Vladimir Putin, told him to do so at their meeting in Alaska last week. The president provided few details, but wrote on social media that he would lead a movement to get rid of mail-in ballots, and also, while we're at it, highly inaccurate, very expensive, and seriously controversial voting machines. The Times article says that already in March, President Trump had issued an executive order directing the Justice Department to take all necessary action to prevent mail-in ballots received after Election Day from being counted. The U.S. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat from New York, writing on X, Senate Democrats will make sure that any and every measure that would make it even more difficult for Americans to vote will be dead on arrival in the Senate. We will fight this every step of the way to protect our democracy. In a story from AP today, the conservative network Newsmax will pay $67 million to settle a lawsuit accusing it of defaming a voting equipment company, Dominion Voting Systems, by spreading lies about President Donald Trump's 2020 election loss, according to documents filed Monday. This is Washington today. Columbus Dispatch in Ohio writes, when Sherrod Brown left the U.S. Senate last year, he promised he wasn't going anywhere. His comeback didn't take long. Brown, 72 years old, announced August 18th that he'll run for Senate in 2026 against Senator John Husted, who was appointed to replace Vice President J.D. Vance earlier this year. Neither candidate is expected to face a serious primary challenge, meaning they can focus squarely on next year's general election. Brown's announcement came months after he lost to Senator Bernie Moreno in one of the country's most competitive Senate races. That was from the Columbus Dispatch. Sherrod Brown made his announcement in a video.
Standing up for workers, treating everyone with dignity and respect, working as hard as possible for the people of Ohio. I've tried to live my life by those principles. But these days, that's not what's happening in Washington. Because for the past 8 months, all they've done is made things worse for Ohioans, handing over your hard-earned money to corporations and to billionaires. Their reckless tariffs and economic chaos are increasing prices and threatening the survival of small businesses all across our state. Instead of lowering the cost of health care, they're raising drug prices on seniors and kicking 490,000 hardworking Ohioans off their coverage. And they've increased the deficit by more than $3 trillion, all while giving billionaires the largest tax cut in American history. I didn't plan to run for office again, but when I see what's going on, I know I can do something about it for Ohio. That's why I'm running for Senate. Because even in these challenging times, I still believe if you stand up for workers, treat people with respect, and always fight for Ohio, you can actually make a difference. Join our campaign. Together, we can stop this craziness and get things done for Ohio.
Former U.S. Senator Sherrod Brown, Democrat of Ohio, putting out the video today announcing he'll be entering the race for the Democratic primary to face the Republican incumbent Senator John Husted in 2026. Husted's campaign putting out a statement. Sherrod Brown's recent announcement means Ohioans will face a clear choice in 2026. For 30 years, he has imposed Washington's problems on Ohio, pushing radical liberal policies that have left a lasting burden on the next generation. John Husted offers the opposite approach, applying Ohio's values and solutions to fix a broken Washington. And the Ohio Republican Party put out this video on its account on X.
Sherrod Brown can't take a hint. Ohio voters sent him packing. Now he's back, bankrolled by liberal elites, peddling the same radical agenda. For nearly 50 years, he lived off our taxpayer dollars. And what did Ohio get in return? A rigged system and a raw deal. Amnesty for criminal illegals, even domestic and child abusers. Opening girls' locker rooms to biological men. Erasing the word women from his own pregnancy bill, replaced with woke nonsense like pregnant persons. Forcing women's shelters to take in men, even excluding white farmers from COVID relief. And Brown voted to raise taxes on over 500,000 Ohio seniors. Sherrod Brown, he's still not for you. Ohio fired him once, and they'll do it again. Senate Leadership Fund is responsible for the content of this advertising.
That video posted today on the Ohio Republican Party X account in response to the announcement by former Senator Sherrod Brown that he will be challenging Senator John Husted in 2026. More from the Columbus Dispatch article. Despite help from national Democrats in 2024, Brown couldn't overcome President Donald Trump's popularity in Ohio and his impact on the rest of the Republican ticket. Trump defeated former Vice President Kamala Harris by 11 points, while Brown lost to Moreno Bernie Moreno by fewer than 4. 2026 could be different. Midterm elections typically benefit the party that doesn't control the White House. And President Trump's approval rating has dropped since he took office. Democrats in Ohio and nationally have blasted Republicans for supporting Medicaid cuts and aggressive immigration enforcement. Reporting from the Columbus Dispatch. Washington Today continues in a moment.
Past president, why are you doing this? This is outrageous.
This is a kangaroo court.
This fall, C-SPAN presents a rare moment of unity, Ceasefire, where the shouting stops and the conversation begins. Join Political Playbook Chief Correspondent and White House Bureau Chief Dasha Burns as host of Ceasefire, bringing two leaders from opposite sides of the aisle into a dialogue to find common ground. Ceasefire, this fall on the network that doesn't take sides, only on C-SPAN.
Welcome back to Washington Today, available as a podcast on the free C-SPAN Now mobile app and wherever you get your podcasts. News Nation writes the Trump administration's federal takeover of the Washington police force has entered its second week. National Guard troops deployed to D.C. amid President Donald Trump's crime crackdown could soon be armed. More troops are coming later this week to aid in Trump's efforts. The Republican governors of Ohio, West Virginia, and South Carolina announced they would be sending troops. In a post on social platform X, Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves announced that he approved the deployment of 200 of the state's National Guard troops to D.C. He wrote, "Crime is out of control there, and it's clear something must be done to combat it. Americans deserve a safe capital city that we can all be proud of. I know the brave men and women of our National Guard will do an excellent job enhancing public safety and supporting law enforcement." With Mississippi's deployment, the total number of troops that will be stationed in D.C. is estimated to be 1,700. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser took to social media to disapprove of the deployment, saying American soldiers and airmen policing American citizens on American soil is un-American. That was from News Nation. Mayor Bowser answered reporters' questions about this today. It was at an unrelated event. She was at an elementary school on the first day of school for D.C. public schools.
Last Monday, you'd come out and said that while this was unsettling, that potentially this could be a productive partnership with law enforcement over 30 days. Has your approach or your strategy in dealing with the administration changed since that time in terms of whether this could be productive, or are there more concerns? And are there specific things you're watching that could present a risk to the D.C. community that would change that strategy further?
Well, let me just put it to you this way. I will engage our government in ensuring that we are following the law. Now, what you haven't heard me say any differently in the last 7 days is that the district will follow the law. When there have been changes or attempts to change that was outside of the law, that's why we challenged those changes in court. And as a result, those changes have been backed off from. And so our strategy will deal with the reality as it is presented.
Even just to the second part of that question, even within the law, are there particular areas you're watching closely that if it could present a risk to your community that you would have to? This is what we're watching closely. How can we be responsive in a way that is strategic and can be helpful? Another way to put it, how can we respond in a way that's strategic and averts harm? And I can't give you a laundry list, but I can assure you that very smart people who work across the government are working on that, and we are we're organizing ourselves in a way to deal with this incident response that is most efficient for DC government. But what I would caution everybody to think is, because you're all very logical, smart people, and you want all of this to make sense. This doesn't make sense. You know it doesn't make sense. The numbers on the ground in the district don't support 1,000 people from other states coming to Washington, D.C. You know that. We're in this beautiful school with children singing
about to go to school in a beautifully renovated building with the most prepared teachers in the country. You know the facts on the ground don't support this. You know that. You know it couldn't be done in a neighboring state. You know that. This is not about something that fits into logic. So if you want to know what's happening, the question is really not for us. It's for why the military would be deployed in an American city to police Americans. That's the question. And it's not for me.
Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser, a Democrat, answering reporters' questions today at that elementary school. She was there because it is the first day of the new school year for D.C. public schools. President Donald Trump spoke about what's been happening in Washington, D.C. the past couple of weeks. He brought this up today during his meeting in the Oval Office of the White House with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. It was part of a wide-ranging answer to a question about news media not giving him enough credit for his accomplishments.
We have a thing going on right now in D.C. We went from the most unsafe place anywhere to a place that now friends are calling me up, Democrats are calling me up, and they're saying, sir, I want to thank you. My wife and I went out to dinner last night for the first time in 4 years. And Washington, D.C. is safe. And you did that in 4 days. I'll tell you it's safe. I had another friend of mine. He has a son who's a great golfer. He's on tour. And he came in fourth yesterday in the big tournament where Scotty Scheffler made the great shot. And he said his son is going to dinner in Washington, D.C. tonight. I said, would you have allowed that to happen a year ago? He said, no way. No way. He said, what you've done is incredible. And I think the people realize it. But the press says, he's a dictator, he's trying to take over. No, all I want is security for our people. But people that haven't gone out to dinner in Washington, D.C. in 2 years are going out to dinner. And the restaurants the last 2 days were busier than they've been in a long time. Thank you.
President Donald Trump in the White House Oval Office. It was part of a news conference with a visiting Ukrainian president, and many other topics were covered. Attorney General Pam Bondi posting on X, Washington, D.C. is getting safer every night thanks to our law enforcement partners. Just this weekend, 137 arrests were made and 21 illegal firearms were seized. In total, there have been nearly 400 arrests, and we are not slowing down. We are committed to making D.C. safe again. That post from Attorney General Pam Bondi. Former Attorney General Bill Barr, begins a CNN article, arrived on Capitol Hill on Monday for a deposition by the House Oversight Committee about matters related to Jeffrey Epstein, the first of 10 high-profile Democratic and Republican witnesses subpoenaed by the committee to testify on the case. The move by the panel comes as the case has roiled the House, with many Republicans calling for more transparency and the release of records related to the matter. The committee has also issued a subpoena to the Justice Department, calling for it to provide Congress any Epstein files in its possession, with victims' names redacted. Barr's appearance comes 1 day before the DOJ is supposed to turn over those records to the committee. But the committee chairman, Congressman James Comer, told reporters when he arrived that he does not expect the DOJ to meet that deadline because the department is still trying to compile the records. He said he expects to get them very soon. Reporting from CNN. A few hours into the deposition, some members of Congress on the committee came out and spoke with reporters. First came the Democrats. Here is Suhas Subramaniam of Virginia and Jasmine Crockett of Texas.
We're obviously interviewing former Attorney General Barr today, and I have more questions now than I did before going in. I think certainly there's other people now we want to talk to based on some of the things he said. Just generally, though, I think the Democratic side is doing most of the heavy lifting. I don't think we're learning much from the questioning from the House Republicans. It doesn't seem like this is something where they are truly caring about the victims and about trying to get to the bottom of what's happening, whereas on the Democratic side, we are asking the tough questions and trying to get some answers. But certainly, we have more questions now than we did going in, and we want more answers and more people to talk to.
Yeah, so first of all, I think that the country is on edge right now, and the country really wants to know what is in the files. And I want to be clear that the deadline to actually turn those files over to the committee is on tomorrow. And I will say that after doing this interview, it is clear that we absolutely need the files. Obviously, Attorney General Barr, left in 2020. I don't know that it will ever become fully clear as to why he left, but we know that he left. We know that the investigation seemingly involved SDNY. And right now, we need to speak with those that were involved in the investigation. That is clear as well. It is also clear that the attorney that was responsible, Acosta, for handing out the deal prior to Attorney Barr's reign as Attorney General, we probably need to talk to him. It is very convenient that even though we had to do some twisting and turning to get to the point that we could even get a subpoena, because if you recall, the Congress left early because they did not want to take a vote on this, but because of the leadership on the Oversight Committee, because of the Democratic leadership, they were able to go ahead and get a subpoena in one of our subcommittees done so that we could actually get the ball rolling. The question is if they are truly invested in doing what's right and making sure that there's real transparency for the American people. Right now, it doesn't seem like that. It seems like they are going through the motions and they want people to believe that they are digging in. But at the end of the day, I don't think that we've learned anything through the Republican questioning that you couldn't find in one of the articles that most likely your outlets have printed.
Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, Democrat from Texas, and before that, Congressman Suhas Subramanian, Democrat from Virginia, speaking to reporters outside the Oversight and Government Reform Committee closed-door deposition with former Attorney General Bill Barr. More from the CNN article. Barr served in the top job at the Department of Justice during President Donald Trump's first term and was in the role when Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide while awaiting trial on federal charges accusing him of sexually abusing underage girls. Epstein was found unresponsive in his cell at New York's Metropolitan Correctional Center, a federal detention facility. Shortly after Epstein's death, Barr said that he was appalled and angry to learn of the center's failure to adequately secure this prisoner and announced that the FBI and Justice Department's internal watchdog would investigate Epstein's death. In 2023, the Justice Department's Office of the Inspector General issued a scathing rebuke of the Bureau of Prisons detailing multiple failures that led to Epstein's death, but found no evidence to contradict the absence of criminality in his death. That was from CNN. A few minutes after the House Democrats spoke with reporters, the Oversight Committee Chair, James Comer, Republican of Kentucky, came out.
Obviously, the deposition is still ongoing. We're in the third hour now. Attorney General Barr's answering every question, and I think that he's being very transparent, and that's our goal with this investigation, is to be transparent. The Democrats took their full hour. I've been here 2.5 years, and I didn't know they could actually ask questions in a deposition. So they're obviously taking it very seriously because this is a bipartisan investigation, and hopefully we'll be able to get the answers the American people want and deserve. I'll be happy to answer a few questions.
Chair Comer, your Democratic colleagues came out here a short time ago and said that Democrats have been doing more of the heavy lifting in the question and answer session, and they say that Barr has left more questions than actually answers. Do you think more folks should be subpoenaed from the Southern District of New York that dealt with this case?
I think that Barr's answering all the questions. I think it's unfortunate. The Democrats are trying to, seems to me, politicize this. When you look at the basis of this, the horrific crimes against young girls, and of course the Democrats' goal is to try to dig up some type of dirt on President Trump. And what Attorney General Barr testified in there was that he never had conversations with President Trump pertaining to a client list. He didn't know anything about a client list. He said that he had never seen anything that would implicate President Trump in any of this, and that he believed if there had been anything pertaining to President Trump with respect to the Epstein list, that he felt like the Biden administration would have probably leaked it out. And I think that's pretty much conventional wisdom among anyone that's practical in this. So I think it's a good deposition, and obviously we're asking a lot of tough questions too. I don't ever remember the Democrats subpoenaing a former Democrat Attorney General for anything. So hopefully we'll be able to speak with everyone that had any involvement in this. And look, this is something I've said for weeks now. People want to know the truth about Epstein Island. They want to know who was involved. Was the government involved? Did the government know about it? And I think Attorney General Barr's shed a lot of light with respect to his knowledge of it, and hopefully we'll bring in Merrick Garland and others and find out more.
Congressman James Comer, Republican from Kentucky, chair of the Oversight Committee, outside the deposition with former Attorney General Bill Barr. James Comer also asked about Tuesday's deadline that the committee has given the Justice Department to send over all the documents related to the federal Jeffrey Epstein investigation.
If the DOJ does not meet the deadline, will you enforce the subpoena against anyone else who may?
Well, as I said earlier, we are in constructive, productive conversations with the DOJ. And one thing that we've picked up in here, there are a lot of documents. There have to be a lot of documents. So I'm under the impression that they're gathering all these documents, and that's what the subpoena called for. And I think the administration knows this is what Congress wants, Republicans and Democrats. And I think President Trump has said clearly he wants to release all the documents. So we're going to get the documents.
Congressman James Comer. He later put out a statement. Officials with the Justice Department have informed us the department will begin to provide Epstein-related records to the Oversight Committee this week on Friday. There are many records in DOJ's custody, and it will take the department time to produce all the records and ensure the identification of victims and any child sexual abuse material are redacted. Story from Reuters. Leaders of the union on strike against Air Canada said on Monday they would risk jail time rather than have cabin crews forced back to work by a federal labor board, raising the stakes in a battle that has disrupted flights for hundreds of thousands of travelers during summer tourist season. The Canadian Union of Public Employees said the strike would continue until the carrier negotiates on wages and unpaid work, even after the Canada Industrial Relations Board declared the strike unlawful. Reporting from Reuters, the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney spoke to reporters in Ottawa.
Is there anything to say to Air Canada union workers?
I'll say the following. We recognize very much the critical role that flight attendants play in keeping Canadians and their families safe as they travel, comfortable as they travel. And it's important that they're compensated equitably at all times, fairly at all times. That's the reason why there have been negotiations over the course of the last 8 months. It is disappointing that those negotiations did not come to an agreement, and it was the judgment of both the union and the company that they were at an impasse. That's not my judgment, it's their judgment. And so we are in a situation where literally hundreds of thousands of Canadians and visitors to our country are being disrupted by this action. I urge both parties to resolve this as quickly as possible, and the Minister will have more to say. Minister Hajdu will have more to say later.
Did the government make a mistake imposing binding arbitration on the weekend?
The Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, head of the Liberal Party, speaking to reporters on Parliament Hill in Ottawa today. The president of the Air Canada component of the Canadian Union of Public Employees, Wesley Lasowski, was interviewed by CTV on Sunday about the strike.
Your national president, Mark Hancock, ripped up the return to work order. It seems right now that things are still grounded. So what do you have to say right now?
I'll just confirm that things are still grounded until we get a contract, get back to the table, and come forward with something that our members get to ratify.
So what could that be if binding arbitration is being essentially imposed here? How do you get to Z if it seems from A, B, C there's been challenges, or, well, in this case it seems like it's more than a roadblock to getting a contract at the bargaining table?
Air Canada needs to see that all these people are standing behind their union. Air Canada needs to understand that we need a collective agreement. We have been waiting. We're 8 months in. They need to start taking us seriously, and we're available today. They texted me earlier at about 9:25 to ask, are you putting a statement out on the back to work order? I sent them back a video of it being ripped up. It's time for them to come to the collective agreement and deal with us here at the table with these people who are behind us. We're done.
Wesley Lasowski, president of the Air Canada component of the Canadian Union of Public Employees, interviewed on CTV on Sunday. Also on Sunday, Air Canada's chief operating officer, Mark Nasser, was on CP24.
My concern, our entire company's concern, is our customers, particularly those that are stranded at their destination. We've got to get the planes back in the sky. We've got to get Canadians moving again. What's happening here right now is my coworkers are supporting our Toronto Pearson operation. And on a normal day, they'd be supporting 40,000 customers moving through this airport. We should be back in the air right now, but due to this illegal strike directive from CUPE to our flight attendants, we're still grounded and our customers are still facing disruption and uncertainty. That's what's on my mind.
Air Canada COO Mark Nasser on CP24 on Sunday. NBC News writes that Air Canada is suspending its guidance for third quarter and full-year operating results after the union defied back-to-work orders, which further halted the airline's plan to resume flights. The airline said in a Monday press release, Air Canada deeply regrets the impact the labor disruption has had on our customers, its stakeholders, and the communities it serves. On Wall Street today, the Dow down 34, NASDAQ up 6, S&P down a fraction. And this story from The Hill, Congresswoman Kat Cammack, Republican of Florida, on Monday announced the birth of a baby girl, becoming the 15th Congresswoman to give birth while serving in office. Cammack said her daughter, Augusta Dare, was born August 14th after a very long and tough labor. She said baby is doing great and already showing us her sweet and sassy personality, while mom is speedily recovering. She wrote that in a post on the social platform X, including a photo of the daughter. That was from The Hill. Thanks for listening to Washington Today. Sign up for C-SPAN's evening newsletter word for word and get the stories making headlines in Washington emailed to you every day. Subscribe at cspan.org/connect. Have a good night.